In this lesson, you'll learn about triads in inversion. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify triads in inversion and to write triads in inversion. Here's an excerpt from the opening of Mozart's piano sonata, Koelschel 331, and this is the first movement. Pause this video, take a minute to find a recording of it on YouTube or through the library streaming site, and listen to it. I've circled 3 chords in red on this slide. 2 of them occur on the downbeats of measure, and the last one is on the weak beat of the measure. Remember, 6/8 is a compound duple meter, and the dotted quarter note is the beat unit. Going forward, it will be important to distinguish between the base of the chord and the root of a chord. The notes in red on this slide are the bass notes. They are the lowest sounding notes in each chord, A, G sharp, and E, respectively. If you look at the letters beneath each circle, you notice that they can be rearranged to fit our 3-note triad patterns. The first chord is simply an A major triad, A, C sharp, E, in open position. Note the space between the bass and the middle voice, and the middle and upper voice. The second chord can be rearranged to conform to our E-G-B group. With the G sharp, we have an E major triad. However, E is not the lowest sounding note in this chord. Again, it's in open position with the 6th between the bass and the middle voice, and a 5th between the middle and upper voices. The last chord again contains A, C sharp, and E, an A major triad like the first chord, but A is not the bass note, E is. The upper voices here are in close position with only a 3rd between the A and C sharp. On this slide, I've indicated the roots of the chord in blue. Recall the distinction between root and bass. The root of a triad is the lowest sounding note when the triad is written as a stack of thirds. The bass is the lowest sounding note, period. There are cases where the root and the bass are the same thing, as in the first chord circled here, and there are cases where the root of the chord and the bass note are different. When an element of the chord other than the root is in the bass, we say that the chord is in an inversion. As I mentioned a moment ago, a chord is in root position when the root of the chord is in the bass. A chord is in first inversion when the 3rd of the chord is in the bass, and a chord is in second inversion when the 5th of the chord is in the bass. The bass alone determines inversion. It doesn't matter at all what's happening in the upper voices. Returning to the Mozart, we can say that the first chord is in root position because the root is in the bass. The second circled chord is in first inversion because the 3rd of the chord, G sharp, is in the bass. You'll notice that the root is in the middle voice. And we can say that the last circled chord is in second inversion because the 5th of the chord is in the bass. Again, the root of this chord is in the middle voice. This slide shows the inverted triads in the abstract. I've included root position and inversions for the tonic and dominant chords in A major. These are all written in close position. Looking at this a different way, we can say that the first measure begins with a root position tonic chord, the second measure begins with a first inversion dominant chord, and the last harmony in the phrase is a second inversion tonic chord. Voicing, that is, whether the chord is in open or close position, does not affect our judgment of inversion, nor does the ordering of notes in the upper voices. Here's another example from Handel's Messiah. It's the chorus, Glory to God. I've included just the piano reduction here. The choir is basically singing what you see in the left hand of the piano part, which, take note, is in treble clef. The piece is in D major, and I've indicated the key at the lower left and labeled the harmonies with Roman numerals. Below the Roman numerals, I've indicated whether or not the chords are in root position or in an inversion. These judgments were made primarily using the information in the left hand of the piano. Some of the 16th notes in the upper part can be disregarded as embellishing tones. Before I show you how to write triads and inversions, I need to cover 2 quick but important bits of information. When we write chords in inversion and we need to double a note, More often than not, we double the root. In second inversion chords, it's most common to double the bass note, that is, the fifth of the chord. In general, second inversion chords are unstable harmonies and must be dealt with in very specific ways. We'll talk about them in more detail later once we get into part writing and voice leading. So let's say you're asked to write an F minor triad in first inversion. Your first step will be to spell the triad correctly. FAC is the three-note group that starts with F, and it's a major triad, so we'll need to lower the A to A flat to make it F minor. A flat is the third of the F minor triad, and it will be the bass in a first inversion chord. At the bottom of the slide are several possible correct solutions. The first one shows three notes on the treble staff. This is in close position and can easily be played with one hand on the piano. The second one features the A flat on the bass staff with the other two notes in the treble staff. The third measure shows an open voicing of the chord, again with only three notes. In the last measure, we see four voices, the A flat in the bass and the three voices in the treble, and the F is doubled. Having watched this lesson, you should now be able to identify triads in inversion and write triads in inversion. As usual, if you have any questions, post them to the discussion board on Canvas, and you're encouraged to answer any questions posed by your classmates. Be sure also to take the quiz. You can use whatever materials you have in hand, and you can take it as many times as you like. But you must score 100% before coming to class and in order to unlock the next module.